In just a few hours from now, we will be privileged in Mirz Hashem to begin the Yom Tov of Succos. And of course, the Yom Tov of Succos very much revolves around the sukkah, the structure, the booth itself. We move all of our activities of daily living into this hut. Everything takes place in the sukkah. And there are many halachas, many laws which govern the creation and the maintenance of the sukkah. In fact, the opening Mishnah, Maseches Sukkah, writes, Sukkah shiga v'olam me eser mama. If you have a sukkah that's more than 20 amas tall, the sukkah is invalid. And the Gemara tries to understand why is this so. What's wrong with a sukkah that's more than 20 amas? 20 amas is about 30 to 35 feet. What's wrong with a sukkah that's this tall? And the Gemara explains so beautifully, because if one sits in such a tall sukkah, one is going to actually be sitting in the shade of the walls and not the shade of the schach. In other words, to be mekayim, to fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah, I'm supposed to sit b'tzel schach, in the shade of the schach, not b'tzel defanos, not the shade of the walls. And the Svarim in Hasidic literature, it's understood that this is not only a halachic lesson, but it is a life lesson, a profound spiritual lesson as well. And the Svarim explain as follows. There are two parts to the sukkah. There are the walls, and there's the schach. The walls are solid. The walls are defined. The walls represent gashmius, represent physicality, but not just gashmius in terms of material wealth. They represent the material things in this world that we focus on. They represent the things, the concrete concepts that we can wrap our head around, that we can go ahead and focus on. The schach represents ruchnius. The schach represents spirituality. You know, in the world of spirituality, spiritual concepts often defy complete definition, and sometimes are a bit ambiguous, or sometimes are a bit amorphous. In fact, the Zohar writes that going into the sukkah, living underneath the schach, is to live b'tzeila dehemenusa, is to live ultimately in the shade of the Ribono Shel Olam. That's what it means to go into the sukkah. I remove myself from the definition, from the safety, from the security of my home, of the material world, and I venture out into something else. And life is like a sukkah. People think life is like a box of chocolates. Life is like a sukkah. There are the things I understand, the things I can define, the things I can wrap my head around. Those are the walls. And then there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's Ruchnius. There's my neshama. Things that I understand a little bit, but I don't fully comprehend them. They're there, but I know they're there. But yet again, if you ask me to define it, if you ask me to quantify it, if you ask me to explain it, it often defies those material metrics. You know, you look at the schach is there, it's a roof. Is it a full roof? Well, the rain comes in, you're supposed to be able to see the stars through it. So the walls represent the material world, the schach represents the spiritual world. And what's the Yom Tov of Sukkos? You see, all too often in life, we define ourselves by that which we can quantify, by that which we can measure. Who am I? Well, who am I? What do I do as a profession? What's my job? That's part of who I am. Where do I live? What kind of house do I live in? What kind of possessions do I possess? These are all things that define us. And that's definitely a part of who we are, because the walls of the sukkah, the walls of life, the material trappings, are an important part of who we are. But it's important for us to also acknowledge that there's a part of me that I don't know. There's a part of me that I haven't become fully acquainted with. There's a part of me that I have not yet even discovered. That's my schach. That's the roof that's there, but it's kind of not there. It's apparent, but yet I don't fully comprehend it. It represents being underneath the protective wing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but yet I'm not even exactly sure what that means. And this is the sukkah, this incredible synthesis between the material things that I could define and that define me, but a recognition that there's so much more to me than my walls. There's so much more to me than the material. There's so much more to me than just the things that I could define. There are pieces of myself that I have not yet even discovered. There are pieces of my identity, pieces of my persona that I don't even know exist. And we have to find the courage to really find out who we are. Who am I really? Because all too often in life, when you ask me who I am I'll tell you what I do for a living. I'll tell you where I live. I'll tell you what I drive. I'll tell you what I own. Because those are physical things that could give some level of definition. And those are wonderful, good things, fantastic. But that can't be the totality of my self-definition. That can't be the totality of who I am. Because I'm a neshama. I'm a soul. I'm a chelek elokam mima'al mamish. I'm a spark of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a spark of the infinite, of the Ribono Shel Olam, that lives inside of me. And it's there, and it's waiting to be discovered, and it's waiting to be uncovered, and it's waiting to be utilized. And that's Sukkah. Sukkah, as I leave my home, which is all walls. It's all walls. It's all material. And I come out into the Sukkah, which still has material, because the truth is I'm a human being. So there's always some level of materialism that is part of who I am. But Sukkah is there. My goal is to live in the shade of the Schach, to discover the undefined part of who I am, to discover the ambiguous part of who I am. You know, I feel over Yamim Noraim, maybe I began to scratch the surface a little bit. Maybe I began to discover it in some small way, who and what I am, what I'm capable of doing. And so I take all of that energy that I think I've begun to discover over Yamim Noraim, and now I bring it out into the Sukkah. And now I want to bring it out into the world. I don't want my life just to be about the walls. I don't want me just to be defined by the external material trappings that are part of my life. I want to discover my schach. I want to discover my ambiguity. I want to discover that holiness that resides within, that even though I don't know what it is, where it is, or how exactly I'm going to uncover it, I want to try. And that's what Chazal were saying. You can't live in the shade of the walls of the sukkah, or you totally miss the point. You got to live in the shade of the schach. Maybe Zochem Eretz Hashem over this Yom Tov of Sukkos. First of all, to feel the simcha, to feel the incredible joy of this Yom Tov. And there is so much joy. But most importantly, we should be privileged to enjoy the walls of life, enjoy the material trappings of life. But don't let the walls be the only element of personal definition. But rather, let's also find our schach. Let's sit in the shade of the schach. Discover our ambiguity. Discover our holiness. Discover our spirituality. And even though I don't know how to fully define it, because I don't know really who I am on the inside, and I don't yet know the true holiness I possess, but hopefully Meretz Hashem over the Yom Tov of Sukkos will be zocha to discover it, will be zocha to find it, and it will be zocha to live in the shade of the schach. Wishing everyone a beautiful and uplifting Zman Simchas in the Yom Tov of Sukkos, a beautiful Yom Tov, a good Yom Tov.